everyone, this is Big Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you. I'm going to talk about legacy sequels within the movie industry and whether Hollywood really needs to consider to stop doing them altogether. Now this comes off the recent release of Tron Ares. This was the mega budgeted science fiction legacy sequel to the cult science fiction fantasy that was released back in the early 1980s. Now the movie itself on its release has come under huge scrutiny after only managing to gross around $16 million worldwide. It did claim the top spot within US territories of around $33 million in its opening weekend. But when you look at the budget, which was anything north of $115 million, it yet again does signal another big box office disappointment in something that's becoming far too regular and frequent within 2025 alone. Now, I can't really extend the discussion regarding Tron Ares. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really comment as to whether it's a good movie or not. The critical reception would certainly indicate that it's not. Many people feeling that this was yet again another uninspired cash grab. There's been further criticism at the fact that it pretty much dismissed what happened within Tron Legacy in terms of the characters involved in that film. And even that story itself, when it was released back in 2010, that wasn't anything groundbreaking or particularly spectacular in my own personal opinion. Though it has gained a certain reverence later on post its release, it wasn't exactly the massive blockbuster that I believe they were hoping for upon its overall release. And this is something that's really becoming far too much of a trend recently. Now, we've known for many years now Hollywood's desperation and very much bankruptcy in terms of creative ideas, cashing in on famous sequels, famous hits, particularly from the 1980s, still the greatest movie decade in my personal opinion. So this is nothing new here. We've covered this territory multiple times. The fact that they are unwilling, it seems, to take a risk on newer, fresher ideas and rather would just cash in on the nostalgia of these previous movies. Now, many people would argue that 2025 has at least seen a certain uptake in original movies and ideas. Certainly the likes of Sinners and Weapons have provided a counter argument that newer original ideas can certainly succeed and become profitable at the box office. But those type of movies are still being outweighed by these nostalgia cash grab sequels. And the issue here being is that Hollywood, I think, is once more misinterpreting or not quite understanding the overall legacy, in inverted commas, of these certain movies. So if we take Tron, for example, okay, it has a certain fan following. I can vividly remember watching that movie multiple times throughout the 1980s. But when we look at it, Tron was not a massive box office success within that decade. It was, as I mentioned before, very much of a cult status type of movie. The effects deemed at the time were visually groundbreaking, but critically, it was assumed that there was not enough depth or emotional weights to supply or supplement the visual effects. And as I already mentioned about Tron Legacy itself, not being a massive hit on its release in 2010. So common sense would dictate that Tron Ares really wasn't necessary, and that many people weren't really asking for a sequel to Tron or indeed Tron Legacy. Yet the studio deemed that it was worthy enough to inject $100+ million budget. And we've seen this multiple times. Blade Runner 2049. We look at the original, released also in 1982, deemed to be very much a flop on its release, and its resonance really carried over following its release on VHS. But again, this was much more of a cult following type of movie. But for some reason, the studios misinterpreted that as a huge franchise and spent multi-million dollars with the sequel Blade Runner 2049. And despite grossing just over $250 million worldwide, and once more, that wasn't deemed to meet expectations as what was deemed within all of the hype at the time. And we could say this is once more a failing of Hollywood and its over-reliance of, let's say, social media, where if you look at the certain traction on those platforms, you may be deemed to think that certainly the likes of Tron and Blade Runner were huge blockbusters upon their release, but this is again very much living in short-term mentality and focusing much more on what's trending on the internet rather than what actually happened in terms of the movie's overall release. But it seems Hollywood as usual, doesn't want to learn its lesson. In the future, we have the upcoming Predator Badlands, a sequel to ongoing installments that, again, weren't very successful at the box office. The original, of course, still stands today as one of the most iconic pieces of action cinema in all of movie history, and the second film itself gains extra resonance with every passing year. But again, those movies were not absolutely box office mega blockbusters. So why do we keep getting following installments afterwards? What makes the studios think that this Predator Badlands were going to be a massive success? We've also learned recently that Amazon and MGM Studios are still planning to go ahead with the sequel to Heat, Michael Mann's crime masterpiece. On its release in 1995, was, yes, deemed one of the best films of that particular year, and has gone on to gain resonance as one of the best movies of certainly the 1990s. But once more, when we look at that box office record, Heat was not again the mega box office success that everybody deemed it to be, only managing to gross over $150 million on its overall release. The big selling point of that film was, of course, the first major screen pairing between both legendary actors Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. But of course, following that movie and the aging phases of both actors, you're not going to have that pairing this time around. So what warrants a sequel to a movie that everybody has deemed close to a 10 out of 10 when you're not going to have the two biggest appealing elements that made the movie so special in the first place? Now, in terms of legacy sequels, there are, of course, exceptions, and straight away people will bring forward Top Gun Maverick, without question one of the most successful legacy sequels within recent times. We can also look at Tim Burton's sequel Beetlejuice. Again, that was another big massive hit when it was released last year. But those type of successes really seem to be one-offs against the normal grain, and you could easily argue that both Top Gun and Beetlejuice, when they were released in the 80s, had far bigger success and impact than what Tron did. So whilst Hollywood thinks they can cash in on nostalgia for these films, they still fail to realise that consciously or subconsciously, when these sequels arrive, people in general will automatically draw comparisons to the classic originals, and these recent remakes or reinventions just won't hold up in comparison, no matter how much of a budget or how advanced the CGI or the effects are. Now, one would think that the smarter idea would be to make these sequels at a much more smaller cost, therefore not putting them under the pressure to perform exponentially. But as usual, Hollywood still continues to infuse these movies with huge, massive budgets, which seems all too commonplace now, regardless of the genre, whether it is a science fiction masterpiece, a superhero movie, or indeed an art house drama. So there are multiple elements and reasons why I think Hollywood really needs to stop now pushing out these legacy sequels, especially when you look at the originals, which were at best much more cult successes rather than the highest grossing movies of the year that they were released in. You're trying to make a franchise of a film that just wasn't built that way at all, and I think this is the biggest problem, and that's why we are seeing continued failures like Tron Ares at the box office. And whether Hollywood continues to learn this lesson or not still remains to be seen overall. So there's my thoughts and feelings when looking back at movie legacy sequels in today's climate, and whether Hollywood really should continue making them or not. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics for the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know within the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.